right, welcome back. Our phone number is 877-84-ROGER. We're on the web at rogerhedgecock.com with the chat room open, email coming in. And I wonder if you've heard about this party at the University of California, San Diego. It's made the national news, billed as the, quote, Compton Cookout. The local papers here and around the country have been calling this off-campus party last week one that mocked Black History Month and added a sense of injury, says the San Diego Union Tribune, among many students who feel that it degraded blacks and other minorities who worked hard to earn a spot at the UC campus. Well, the man who claims to be the organizer behind that party is our next guest. I'll introduce him as Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones, welcome to the program.
Yeah, how you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Now, give us your full name.
What do you mean, my stage name, what people know me by?
Yeah.
Yeah, I go by Jigaboo Jones.
Okay. Now, I'm going to just call you Mr. Jones.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
Oh, that's not a problem. I understand, you know.
Because that name, I mean, it's a name that was used in my youth by white people who wanted to make racist comments about blacks, and now you've adopted it.
Well, my grandfather used to call me that.
All right. Now, Mr. Jones, let me ask you. You're an African American, right?
Yeah.
And you tell me about this party. You say you organized it.
Well, yeah, we've been doing this since 2005.
Doing what?
We have a thing that we usually call it. Well, I know it's here on the radio. We usually call it Nigger Night. And what the problem was this year, people thought that there was enough tensions on the campus already that they said, hey, let's change the name. Let's try something that's not so offensive. And we decided, okay, well, and then we went with a Compton Cookout.
So, in other words, you tried to tone this down a little bit.
Right.
Now, but were you surprised by the backlash?
Well, yeah, because we never had no problem before, and this wasn't a racist event. This was not nothing to make fun of nobody, this was actually, believe it or not, this is something that brings the races together, because for one night, everybody's on the same playing field. And, it was one of those things where, you normally can't ask a black guy, hey, man, why you wear your pants hanging down, or why you do this, why you do that. And on a night when we do like this, like the Compton Cookout, you can actually talk about the things that you couldn't talk about. It's like that's the elephant in the room when you're dealing with like black folks. And I felt it was a really good event because it wasn't just white people there. There was black people, Filipinos, a lot of Filipinos were there, a lot of Asians were there. And everybody had a good time. This was a good time had by all. This was no racist event. But what happened is we had some people that were there last year at what we call Hit Night 2009, and they would get drunk, and they started a couple arguments. I won't say it developed into a fight, but we just knew better this year that when they showed up at the door, you know what, you guys can't come in because we're not trying to have any kind of problems. We're not trying to have the police come out because we already know how negative it would be if the police came out to a party and found a bunch of white folks with makeup on and dressed up. It would just been a big deal. We didn't want to have that. We didn't allow people to drive home drunk. We took their keys from them so that nobody would be in a car, getting stopped by the man, and you got all this makeup on your face and you're drunk driving. So we did a lot of very positive things that nobody has talked about up until this point. But, it just makes a better news story if it's a racist thing. And even though the people knew who had good Lord. Even though they knew who had organized this, even on the picture's got my name on the shirt, on my shirt in the original thing we put out. We put out two different ways on Facebook and MySpace and whatever, but nobody ever wants to bring that up. They say, oh, it was a white racist group, racist fraternity that did this. That just makes a better story than the truth. Just a bunch of good friends and people hanging out, my fans coming out to celebrate my new DVD coming out.
Now, Mr. Jones, let me ask you, you have a DVD coming out. What is that DVD? I mean, you're a stand-up comic, are you?
Well, yeah, I do what's called criminal comedy.
Criminal comedy.
I poke fun. I do like criminal comedy where I poke fun at how crime is funny. A lot of people don't realize if you steal a car, it's pretty funny to drive off in somebody else's car. And we exploit that. We talk about that, and we show how easy it is to take cars and things like that. And I've got a lot of fans. My demographics between like 14 years old and 30.
Yeah.
So
you got a new DVD. So you have a new DVD coming out with this material, and to celebrate that, or you were doing this promotion of this party.
Right. We were saying, hey, for one night, you can find out what it's like to be black. Come on out, and have a good time, get some drink, get everything going on, bring you some great soda. I mean, all this stuff. Come on, a lot of black people try to say, oh, I don't eat fried chicken. Come on, let's be real. Black people eat fried chicken. Black people drink Old English. Everybody else does too. But there's a lot of people out there that try to pretend. And these are the people who have claimed to be offended. How dare you show white people you eating fried chicken? What's the big deal? I don't see the big problem. Everybody knows it's true. What's the big deal? Now,
Mr. Jones, I got to tell you, this is amazing because in every news report that I have read, the Pikes, the Pi Kappa Alpha fraternity, has been blamed for this thing. White students have been blamed for this thing. It's been characterized totally as a racist party, demeaning to Black History Month, blah, blah, blah. You're painting an entirely different story. What role did the fraternity have, if any, in this thing?
The only role the fraternity had was at the location. We set up one of my big fans of one of our, we have I don't want to give out his name because he's going through enough already. But one of my supporters, I have a street team. And so we set up at a couple of different houses. There were 4 different houses that ran that party. You could go, you walk from one house, you could go from Compton all the way to Hawthorne to Inglewood. And it was a lot of fun. So just the proximity of where the frat house was for them was when they found out about the party. Everybody just came over and everybody crashed out there and had a good time. They say that the fraternity didn't do it. You can go on my website at jigaboojones.com and you can see the pictures that we had from last year, from Nigga Night 2009.
Now, in other words, you've done this before.
We've done this every year since 2005. Every year I've released a video, we put on a little event like this because a lot of my people are they're in college. They're about that age. Same people that watch Jackass and MTV. That's my same demographic.
Now, have you done this at other college campuses? Or around?
Yeah, we did one at UNLV just a couple of days ago.
And that had no problem?
No problem at all.
What was that called? What was that party called?
Same thing. It was called Nigga Night. It was Nigga Night because we didn't have very much luck with Compton Cookout, so we kind of stayed away from that.
Yeah, they didn't know what Compton was about, I don't think. But So wait a minute. You got white guys in there with blackface and all that?
Oh, yeah. And it's a good time. There's nothing racist about that. People just having a good time. It's just everybody for one night is everybody quote unquote a nigga for that night, and it was no big deal, and it set up a good dialogue.
All right, now
talk about things.
All right, now this is fascinating stuff. I want to get a chance to discuss this with you. Hang on, I've got to take a break for news, Mr. Jones. Okay. We'll be right back with you and the callers at 877-84-ROGER and a special appearance by a history professor at UCSD who thinks this is still racist, Daniel Widener, with us, and your calls after this.
Roger Hitchcock.
For this week, the campus at University of California, San Diego has been in absolute turmoil over last week's off-campus party called the Compton Cookout, named for a famous African-American community, Compton, California, where, by the way, I was born. Compton Cookout, according to activists on campus, degraded blacks and other minorities. It was an attack on students of color. It was a racist event. There have been teach-ins and demands by the Black Student Union and so forth. And all the while, the press and the campus has assumed that this party was organized by white students. It was not, according to my guest, Mr. Jones, who claims that he organized it as a promotion for his new DVD on a humor DVD on the humor of crime. Mr. Jones, did I get that right?
Yeah, that's right. It's
the
ultimate crime wave.
Yeah. So you organized, let me just say this again, because everybody, you haven't come forward at all. Everybody in the press has been blaming this fraternity.
Well, you know what? I have come forward, but it makes a better story to say it's some white racist doing this versus, oh, you know what? Somebody jumped too fast and assumed too much. Nobody wants to do that. It makes a much better story to say, oh, there's a bunch of racists that threw this, and they're trying to throw Black History Month as whatever else. That makes a better story. I've called the university. I called Channel 10, which is their ABC or whoever.
Right.
I called over there, and they said, you know what, we've got our story all right. Thank you. And I said, you know, and the people that dispute that says, look, whose picture was in the original ad that everybody got pissed off about? The original ad that we put out, nobody showed that. I mean, well, the inside people had the MySpace, and it's still there. You know, with the two white kids doing the whole thing with the watermelon. That was funny. But, you know, they deleted my Facebook a long time ago. So I'm a little bit older. I don't understand the Facebook thing. So I got some boosters that'll take care of the Facebook thing.
Well, you know how
you
know how I got on it. I got on it because you were up on YouTube telling this whole story.
Right.
And in fact, we're going to post that after we get through this interview. We will post that entire YouTube explanation by you of what went on and what you did and why you did it. And I got to ask Marianne Fox, the chancellor of the university. I've got to ask the San Diego Union Tribune, Channel 10, and the rest of the national media that's been covering this as a racist incident. Where the hell are you coming from? Why don't you talk to the guy who organized the party, who happens to be this black guy, Mr. Jones, and tell him again what name you go under here.
Jigaboo Jones.
Jigaboo Jones.
America.
All right. Now, let me just say that again, because I want people to hear it from your lips.
Okay, I don't want to get you thrown off the air.
Go ahead.
But, you know, yeah, when you go on Yahoo or Google, you search for the #1 nigger in America, you will find me on there. And that's where I've been since 2005. I'm not new. This isn't something new. It's just that older people are just now discovering me. If you don't have an iPod or you don't know how to work an iPod, you probably don't know who I am. And the kids know. The kids all know who I am. They all know my videos. You go on the average kid from 14 to, say, 21, I can guarantee you somewhere on their iPhone or their smartphone, they've got one of my ringtones. They've got one of my videos. They've got something on there of Jigaboo Jones. But these older people have just jumped up and said, oh, this guy's trying to grandstand. There's no grandstanding about it. I got 2 DVDs already on the market doing the same exact thing that you hear me talking about right now.
All right, Mr. Jones, let me give out our phone numbers, 877-84-ROGER, toll-free around the country, on the web at rogerhedgecock.com. What do you think here, folks? You've heard the official mainstream press story that this was a racist event organized by a white fraternity to mock Black History Month. Now you've heard Mr. Jones' story. What do you think? And by the way, one of the professors who've been involved out there at the campus at University of California, San Diego, in the teach-in and quoted in the press with regard to the racism involved here, is a teacher of African American history, cultural studies, and 20th century political radicalism, according to his own bio here. And that's Professor Daniel Widener. Professor Widener joins us as well in the news line. Now, Mr. Jones, don't go away. Professor Widener, welcome to the program.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
What do you think about the development that we've just revealed on this program, that the party in question, the Compton Cookout, was organized by this black man we've just been talking to?
Well, I think if anyone paid close attention to the news coverage over the past week, I would say that the cookout really has not been the focus of this story for
Whoa, wait a minute, Professor. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm sorry. I've got 16 different articles in front of me here with nothing but the focus on the campus, on the Compton Cookout.
The last time I looked on Google to see how many outlets were covering this story, there were over 500. So maybe you're, I don't know which articles you have in front of you, and I don't know which parts of them you've had a chance to go all the way through. But
well, Professor Widener, listen, don't give me your holier-than-thou crap. I've gone through and read the articles. Now, you tell me, what's your position now that you know, because I don't think you did know, that a black man organized this party?
What's my position on what aspect of the question?
Is it a racist party?
Is party the racist party?
Is the Compton Cookout? I'll go slower here if we need to. Is the Compton Cookout?
Yeah, sure. Let me answer your question in part historically, as that is my academic training.
Of
That's
course.
what I do for a living.
Uh-huh.
Are you familiar with the entertainer Burt Williams?
No.
I wonder if your other guest is.
No.
Okay. Bert Williams was an important entertainer at the early part of the 20th century. In fact, there's a professor at UC San Diego who wrote a book about him.
Relevant. This is how these guys backpedal with this stuff.
I'm sorry. Might I finish my sentence? I mean, I'm trying to be civil. And it's relevant. Bert Williams was a Caribbean man. He made his living actually dressing in blackface. Although he had very dark skin, he would apply burnt cork, and he was an entertainer. Most of his audiences were white, but he was a black man. The question that has to be asked is not, was Bert Williams a racist, but what was happening in the events that he went to? What was happening when he performed for an audience, presumably, that featured maybe a multiracial group, as was in evidence at this party, but where the primary activity that was taking place was one meant to dishonor and shame women as well as people of color. And I think that's something that's very important to say, because people have said this is a free speech issue. And in reality, the University of California, as with all other public entities, has a very strong published statement and a very strong stance on hate speech, and especially speech that is derogatory along the lines of sexism and misogyny. I take an annual, as does every staff and faculty member here, assessment where we go through to make sure people are in compliance with our sexual harassment policy. And that's something that this event, with the description that was published, clearly violates. So this isn't a question of, was it a racist event or not? It's a question of, first and foremost, what is the aggrieved community? And secondly, what is the context where this becomes an issue on this campus? Now, the students who took over the Koala and broadcast their racist drivel have, I believe, no connection directly to the cookout event. So what's important to us is that there's a broader range of racist culture at the University of California, San Diego. The content cookout is really a symptom and not a particularly important one.
All right, Mr. Jones, your response.
My response is this. You know, these guys have backpedaled from this. You know, one minute the Klan did this. And then when they found out the truth, they just kind of backed off and said, well, no, let's more focus on the gay and lesbian and the other thing. But while throwing everybody under the bus, asking people like a witch hunt, a modern-day witch hunt about finding out who was at the party. You know, get a name, get a list. We had to destroy our footage because we were worried about some kind of attorney going to come up and try to take it and say, well, this person was at the party, that person was at the party, this other guy, this was at his house. And this is the kind of thing that goes on. And not to demean the man or whatever it is, he's talking about something that happened 100 years ago. You know, if you don't have an iPod or you don't know how to get on a Facebook account, you're already out of the target demographic, so you're too old to understand exactly what this is. Today's kids ain't worried about being called no jigaboo. You know, when somebody 60 years old will hear that word and their ears will turn up and they'll go, ooh, I'm so offended. And these are the kind of people that have no business even talking about this because they don't even know what they're talking about. There was no racist event. Nobody got hung at this event. But you know what? Somebody got hung afterwards. This is a power grab by these little groups, these little militant groups, you know, to say, oh, Jigaboo Jones is offensive. Oh, he's hurting somebody's feelings. Nobody's feelings was hurt at that party. But, you know, this is how they can get more power. They can get more funding. They get people like that Big Mouth Bass up there in Sacramento. We all know how stupid she is up here in the California legislature or the assembly. And these are the kind of people that they get to push up there, like Jesse Jackass. He gets up there and he'll defend a bunch of gang members that beat somebody up. And, oh, you know, he's the messiah of black people. Oh, and I'm a bad thing because I poke fun at what everybody looks at and laughs at. You know, I show the obvious. Yeah, you know, I've been to jail. And you know what? There's a lot of funny things that happen in jail, but people don't, it's taboo to talk about it. So, yeah, we bring it out. We laugh with the kids. The kids have a good time with this stuff. And it's funny. Their parents don't understand it. We don't expect their parents to understand it. And I think nobody over 40 years old has ever bought one of my DVDs.
All right. Now, Mr. Jones, let me get Professor Widener's reaction. Professor Widener, you just lack a sense of humor here?
Oh, well, I'd like to begin where your other guest left off, simply by saying that he noted that this was an issue between young and old people, and I would just point out that the courageous and intelligent and dedicated students who walked out on the chancellor's event yesterday were not 40 years old. They're quite young, and they've done quite a bit of organizing through Facebook and other social media that our other guests may or may not know the name of. He also doesn't exactly quite have me in the right age demographic, but that's neither here nor there. I would just say again that I think focusing on any single event, any single person, really misses the point of what students have said, what the Black Student Union has said, and in fact, what I've said in the newspaper, which is that this is an issue of campus climate. It's an issue for a campus that's never been more than 2% African American, and that incidents are not what we're focused on. We're not about incidents. We're not about individuals. We're about structurally changing a university to reflect the will and the wishes of the people of California.
Now, Professor Widener, I think it's fair to say, however, that the incidents have sparked this discussion. The teach-in was the result of the Koala incident and this party. I mean, that's fair to say, isn't it?
Well, those are two different incidents, the party and the Koala.
The incidents did spark the teach-in, and it did spark the coverage, and it did spark the TV cameras, and it did spark you being on TV and in the press, did it not?
Those two things together certainly did. Yes,
yeah, okay, so it is about the incidents. Now, let me remind you, because you brought up the campus anti-discrimination policies, the fact you have to take these tests and be every year and be, indoctrinated into this vocabulary. This event, the party, was held off campus in a private home, right? Are you suggesting the campus should punish people for attending that event?
No, by no means. Let me tell you something. I believe very strongly that this nation was founded on the principle of freedom of speech and the right of people to make absolute ignoramuses of themselves. That's neither here nor there. What this country was not founded upon is the idea that groups of people should be intimidated or denigrated, whatever their particular background or belief system. And what we're saying, to repeat, is that at the university, we have a problem. Now, that may or may not be relevant to the things that are of interest to your guests. That's not for me to decide. I'm simply saying that here at UCSD, we're trying to produce a climate where every California child can get the public education that they deserve, and that's our task.
Do they deserve the public education they earn, or do they deserve a public education based on their skin color?
I'm not sure I understand that question.
I didn't think you would. I appreciate your being on, Professor. Thank you. And Mr. Jones, thank you. We're going to post your YouTube on my website so people can get an insight into where you're coming from.
And so, I do appreciate that last comment you made, because that is exactly the problem, the entitlement that's going on.
I know.
Thank you for actually listening, because a lot of people, they would rather push this racism thing than tell the truth,
I agree, and I know exactly what you're saying. I appreciate you being on. God bless. Thanks.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, your thoughts after this. People to show up in blackface and women to show up as ghetto chicks, and it was as it turns out, a lampoon, a spoof, if you will, and not the racist party that was originally characterized. Now, it's gone around the country that this racist party took place at this campus here, and the San Diego community is justifiably concerned about that. There is a Union Tribune staff writer. San Diego Union Tribune is the official paper. By the way, the lowest circulation per thousand of any metropolitan newspaper in the country, for reasons I will now explain. At least this is an indication of why. The staff writer that's written so many of these stories based on the racism theme is Eleanor Yang Su, S-U. Now, Eleanor has written, for example, quote, in an email obtained by the San Diego Union Tribune from Gary Ratcliffe, Assistant Vice Chancellor for Student Life, it linked the event to Pi Kappa Alpha fraternity. The university publicly identified the party planners as a group of students. We now know that's not true, and we know that Ms. Su may have known it wasn't true, because attributing the party to its actual organizer, whom you just heard in this hour, Mr. Jones, who's clearly an African-American man, would have changed the narrative, wouldn't it? Why doesn't the Union Tribune tell the truth? I guess I've been asking that question for about 24 years. Let's go to the phones. Here's John next. John, welcome to the program.
Hi, Roger. My wife and I are UCSD graduates, and when we watched this, it just brought back so many memories because UCLA, UCSD as a culture, the student culture really has a inferiority wannabe Berkeley complex. When we were there in the early 80s, there was a huge for then because it was a small school, movement, including a march in protest, just like their big brothers did, to make pot legal. And there was a smoke-in, and they insisted that you could smoke marijuana on the campus. And they had all the trappings, and they were so pleased with themselves. And it was, I thought it was just darling. But they just took it seriously. So, so here we are, and nothing's really changed. If it's so bad there, wow, how'd they get so many black students? Okay, if it's so oppressive, why are there so many of them there? Okay.
Notice that last question. The last question I asked of Professor Widener: do you think people ought to get the right to an education based on their earning it, or do you think they ought to get an education based on their skin color? And his response was, "I don't understand the question." And my response to that was, "I knew you wouldn't." You see, we're talking past each other. These folks don't even recognize there's an issue when, in effect, they say there ought to be more blacks on this campus as a matter of right, not as a matter of those students individually qualifying to be on the campus.
Well, and I'll tell you something else, Roger. I can assure you that they were really underrepresented there because the really serious black student was busy studying for their midterms, and they weren't doing this nonsense. Okay, there's a whole bunch of people, black and white, who are trying to actually get an education there and not derail it with this sort of cockamamie nonsense. In addition, I'm doing a little research right now. I'm trying to find some speeches from Angela Davis from back in the day.
Oh, back in the day. How about Herbert Marcuse? He was famously at this institution as well.
Okay, well, and I'm sure it's not going to take me long to find a statement that when I read it read it to somebody on a radio show, they're going to say, "Yeah, well, that was Angela Davis talking about this campus way back when."
Yeah.
So, hey.
All right, John. I appreciate the call. I just got a little bit of time. Let's get Richard in here. Richard, we got 30 seconds. Go ahead. I'm sorry, you can't go ahead. All right, we will come back. You know, when I say go ahead, you got to be able to go ahead. I don't know. What am I telling you? 877-84-ROGER. All right, more on this. The healthcare summit is over. Did anything happen? Did you watch any of it? Did you hear anything you liked or disliked? In the next hour. 877-84-ROGER on the web at rogerhedgecock.com and back after this. Stay with us.
Roger Hedgecock. Live from Washington, you're listening to the voice of freedom, the voice of liberty, the voice of the nation.
This is Radio America.